Hey everybody, Tim Higgins here. So if you watch any of my other videos, this is kind of a continuation of those. So we talked about, well, first of all, let me say happy Friday. I kind of just jumped right into it. I normally do that, but let me slow down a little bit. I may do a complete video beginning to end for all this in one shot, but it's pretty long information. So I thought it'd be easier to break it down. I talked about matching and I talked about a couple other things in the other videos, but I'm going to do one today. And I'm really going to focus on troubleshooting with service virtualization. A lot to do between the dev test workstation, which is what you're looking at, and the portal. We're going to look at things called ITR. From the ITR, then we're going to also talk about execution modes. For the record, the ITR stands for interaction test run, okay? And then we'll go into our execution modes, and then we'll talk about those, and we'll talk about how to update your services and that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. If you remember our lay of the land, first of all, we have, okay, I don't like this refresh. Now, I'd recommend you to keep the refresh on, but we're kind of triaging and debugging, and sometimes that refresh just kind of gets in the way. Now, if you remember, we have our cars playground here. Our cars is just a simple app that does searching. We can look at our cars, right? We get information about our cars, kind of cool. If you've seen any of my other videos, this is probably the demo I use the most. So this is nothing new for those who have seen those. Now, I didn't write this demo, Broadcom did, or maybe CA back in the day, but that's okay because we're going to use it. Now, I have no services running, which is good. I have none, period. So what we're going to do, we can go over here to our workstation. We're going to hit record. Sorry, my audio wants to restart, so but that's okay. So what we're going to do now, I think I've talked about this in the other video, but I'm going to change this. Let me see. Let me browse. I'm going to put it on my desktop so I can know that it's there. And we'll just name this one maybe one car, because that's what we're going to triage, okay? One car. And file name, we'll just call it the same. One car. Okay. Now, if I didn't talk about this in the other video, I will. There's a lot of good information just right here, okay? And I'll have to go back and look at my videos. That's the reason I don't want to do it now, and see if I've already covered all this. If I haven't, then I'll do a video just for this. In our protocol, it gets kind of tricky. If you're doing HTTP and HTTPS, I recommend doing this one, not 2.0, unless you're truly programming for 2.0, because if not, it won't pick it up, okay? And I'm not going to talk about this in this video, just because I've already covered it, I hope. If I haven't, I'll go back and do it. It wants to know where I want to export my file to, so we'll put that here, and we'll just call it one car. That should be an XML file. This should be my model file. We're going to put it in the same place, and we'll call it, one car also. It doesn't have to be. It could be whatever you want it to be. These don't have to be the same. This is my image. This is where it actually exports the traffic that we record, which is really cool, because if you go back and do this recording again, you may not have to do the exact recording. You can actually just import it through this right here, which is really, really nifty. Again, I'm not going to talk about this. We'll do that later, so I'm just going to say next. My cars, again, if you ever saw it, it's running on port 7000, and it's localhost. I think it's 7,000. It's either 7,000 or 7,001. Let me triple check just so we don't make any mistakes. We'll go to our cars. We'll look at where the back end is. Now, this is the back end. Yeah, the back end's 7,000. I'm going to go and change it while I'm here. We're going to want to point it to our recorder, which is at 8001. We'll go ahead and set that and lock that into place. And there shouldn't be anything there just because we don't have anything running. All right, so now let's go back over here. And 7,000, 8001, we're good. We're not doing certificates. Just going to say next. And now we have our recording running. Now, if you saw a lot of the other videos, and I think a lot of the Broadcom videos, they show you how to do it in the portal. So this is kind of cool to show you how to do it in the workstation. But again, I think I have a video out there for that. I hit refresh. Now our cars are working because the recorder works as a pass-through, right? And I'm only going to select this one car. That's why it's called one car, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go back over here. I keep wanting to go to the recorder, but let's go back. To the portal. Let's go in here. I can see transactions. I'm going to hit next. This is my default path. I'm good with that. This is my protocol. I'm okay because it's a REST. And these are my URLs. Now, again, I think I talked about that, but you can modify these. Just go to properties, and this is regex, right? But in this case, it says give me any letter, any number, so forth, so forth. And that's what your parameter is. Again, I'm not going to cover it here. I'm pretty positive I did in another video. If not, we will do it. Uh-oh. That's not cool. So let's try that again. Let's see where we're at. Let's do file. You know what? I think it's because we screwed up our project. New project. Let's try that again. So, wow, that was nifty, but this is a debugging video. So let's just see what happens. So we'll go in here. Let's delete these. At least it was created. See, I could, you know what? I could be cool. So let's just delete that. It created the model. I don't think it created the project. So we didn't go through all this. So I apologize about that. Let's do one car. And we want this, it doesn't have to be capitalized. That was kind of goofy. I did that, but that's okay. Who cares? And we're going to stick that in here. And we're going to say create. Okay. And then create the project. That's probably the most important part is make sure you create your project. And create. Now we've got a project. And now we need to do our recording. And let's see. Does it know? Yep. It knows that it's there, which is good. So we'll just go ahead and call it one car. Now, again, if you were doing this, theoretically, you would actually write folders, create folders, and things like that. I don't really care. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to import my traffic. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to say browse. Because we just did a recording. I don't want to have to do it again, right? So did it see it? Or did we really screw things up? Did I put it, I put it one level higher. That's okay. We'll go with that. And let's see. Let's export it again to the same place, because we didn't really do anything. So my folder structure really is jacked up, but that's okay. We'll say test, and we'll say test. Because if you notice, I have a one car inside of a one car, but that's okay. I actually have a demo today, so I have to clean that up before I do that. So let's say localhost. Let's try that again. Our target port is 7,000. Okay, we're just going to kind of fly through this because I don't want to waste. See, now the cool thing is it read that traffic, so I don't have to do the recording again. Next, next, and next, and next. And there we go. So let's open both of these and let's say finish. Not sure what the hiccup was for. I think it was just getting confused with the projects and the naming. So, but it was that easy to recreate. So now we're going to go through here and look. The first thing we're going to talk about. Now, I covered all this information before. If you notice, I only have one car. We're matching on our signature. Okay. And if we notice our default meta, our 655 or 6. Let's go here. I'm sorry, this one. Everything is signature, right? Because we don't really care at that point. Even if we look at here, we're doing a request and we're not matching on the methods or any parameters, but we are hard coding the actual URL with this. Now that's bad, right? Because I want to make this dynamic. But for this example, this is what we want because we want it to break. Now, if I go over here and look at my model, again, you don't want to make this pretty, right? Because it's just kind of like maybe put your models in one folder and so forth, so forth. These models you create, this is created dynamically. You can add those, and maybe I'll do a video on those later because we used to create those manually a long time ago. Let's go ahead and hit this. This is our ITR, okay? Again, the ITR's job is to basically run a test local. So let's say I want to test this locally before I deploy it. I want to make sure it runs okay. So it's actually in the run mode now. This first one's executed. And I'm going to tell it, I can do it step by step, but what I'm going to do is just tell it to automatically execute the next step. So now it's waiting, okay? So we're going to go over here. We're going to click our search. Oops, home, search. Oh, we got to change this. Wait. We should have to change that. Let's go ahead and lock it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so crazy. It hasn't pulled the data back yet. So that's what it's doing now. So you have to wait. So since I hit refresh, it's automatically going out and getting its data and bringing it back. So this is what we wanted our service to do. Okay, that's step one. Each one of these is a different step. So now it's waiting again. So now if I go look at my car again, now I have the cars. Okay, cool. So I'm going to click on this one, and now we're running again. So notice the flashing. It's going to do the same thing, right? It's going to go off. It's going to get the data for that car, okay? And that's what we want. So let's let it continue. And again, I'm going to talk about all this here in a few seconds, and you'll see it, what it means, and and how it works and all that good stuff. So let's give it a few seconds to finish. And it should be about finished. So give it just a few. And what it's doing is, if you look, it's actually loading this data for this car. So now we're waiting again. And if we go over here and look, we have data. Awesome. Now I'm not going to do the next one because it does it again, right? Again and again and again. So at this point, we're just going to say, okay. Now I want to look at this car though. We didn't record this car, right? So let's go ahead and look at this one. Let's see. We don't have data, but our API is running. It should be going out and casting data or getting data for us. Now we've got an error. What in the world just happened? So I want to see this complete error. Now, we know what happened. We hard-coded our parameter into the URL. But what does this tell me? 404, not found. The URL was not found on the server. So that tells me that there was no match, and therefore it didn't find what we were looking for. So let's go ahead and close. Now, the one thing I want to show, it's going to error out a few times, so let's go ahead and let it finish. Let me stop the recording right here. So you could let it finish if you wanted to, but I manually stopped it. Let's talk about what we have. So if I open this up, just get some real estate, this is going to execute every one of these steps. And every time you see the listener 8001, that means it started over, right? So it's looping through here, and I can see everything that happened, every transaction. The best thing to look at is your properties. Now, when you look at your properties, these get changed for each one of these little steps. The green means it was added new. The yellow means it was a value that was updated. Sometimes you'll see red, and red just means it was an error. So maybe there was a data mistype or something, right? But in this case, like most efficient, the previous value was efficient. Now it's most efficient. Now, if I go through here, I can truly just look at a lot of stuff. What I like to do is go to the last, because that's where the error is. And in here, I can start looking at things like let's go to this one. This is my response section. I can see the ID. Now, I know this ID doesn't exist, but I can come and look at, the cool thing about the yellow is you don't have to read the whole thing, right? Because you can see just what changed, but it changed from the previous step. If I looked up here and get one, here's an image response, I can actually see the response data. Now, if you right click and say launch in viewer, I'm not a fan of this viewer because you can't do much with it. Like you can't, jump to the next line or anything. I was hitting enter, but it does give you a lot of information. So the best thing to do with this is just to take it, copy it, right? There's a format read-only text, but the truth is I just find it so much easier just to put it in a notepad, and then you can do stuff with it. Well, if I copied it right. Let's see. Let's go Control A, Control C, and then Control V. Now in here, most people have their version of a text editor, where if it's Sublime, or I use Notepad 2 on my desktop. You can do a lot more with it than you can the standard Notepad. And that's why I recommend just copying it to your tool, even if it's Visual Studio Code, something that can help you parse some JSON and look at the data. Because here I can see this data actually returned. Now, if I wanted to, and I didn't know, I could go through the trouble and say, okay, that one responded on that. What is the ID of this one that was passed in, right? So I can look at my request and response. And then based off of that, I can compare it to the other one. But we're not going to do all that, okay? What we're going to do is do something a little bit different. Well, I guess the other thing too is you could look at properties. I was going to show properties on this one, but I think I'll show properties on a different one, because properties are important too. That's where a lot of these are getting set, is your properties, okay? If you wanted to look, this is called properties, right? Properties is kind of misleading. But your properties are here, but you also have project properties, you have local properties, then you have global properties, okay? And these are the properties that get set throughout the execution. Now here is your events as well, that, every time one fired off, you can see down here what kind of happened, right? Again, this doesn't tell me a lot. And my response doesn't tell me a lot. Now this tells me the object, I can see the class that was fired off. Here I can see, a lot of good, okay information, a call sheet, which just basically what was called, it's kind of like a stack trace, if you will. but I want to do something different. Let's go ahead and just deploy this to my portal. So instead of being called test, oh wait, I don't know where the test came from. Which one was we? Oh, well, yeah, I guess it's called test. I try to call it one car. Maybe I forgot that one somewhere, but that's okay. Who cares? We'll do it right here. I just make sure I was deploying the right one. So we'll say one car deploy. Okay. Now that's deploying to my portal. Now, truthfully, you shouldn't do that if it was broke, just because now you deployed a broke MAR to your portal, but that's okay. So now it's running. Okay, fair enough. Let's go see what happens. So if I say one car, okay, I see it. It worked. If I go look at the other car, it's not there. Okay. So I can see 12 transactions. Let's just kind of dig a little bit deeper and see what's going on. We'll go to our, oh, I did it way too fast. If I click on it, I now can go into my inspection view. Okay. Inside inspection view, I can look at the same stuff I looked earlier, so I can see my request. This is a little bit easier because it's kind of spread out a little bit so you can see it better. Like here's transaction, right? That kind of stuff. But most importantly, there's this cool little thing called show matching. I can see this one matched, but that one did not. Okay, so no matches for that. So that is my error. I can see that. So that's kind of cool. There's just a couple little things. Now we'll talk about some more logging, but the main thing was to show you how the ITR worked and to show you this matching feature here in the portal. But we're gonna do a couple of things, so hang on. Sorry, I had to be unprofessional, take a drink of my coffee. Now, the next part I want to talk about are execution modes, because there's a couple decisions you have to make now. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this. So my site is broke. I kind of don't want to redo it, but I want more information. So we have this execution mode. So I'm going to open this up. Now this execution mode it's very important. The default is provide virtualized responses. That's the most efficient. That's what most people use. But you also have other options. Okay, what if I want to track what's going on with this? So set it to traction. Notice it's kind of burgundy, red, orange, whatever color you see there. I'm going to save it. Now it's back to a normal color. And now let's go see what happens over here. So if I click this one, okay, it's not too bad. And if I go over here and click this one, still don't have data. But the good news is, see, this one I like to refresh. Let's refresh ourselves. And again, let me get rid of that. But now I can come in here and look, and I can say, show me more information. And here it shows me that this is a stateless. I have 32 counts, but I also have each one of these broken down per response, okay, or per action, I guess. Again, it's almost like a more detailed stack trace. I also have this transaction ID. Notice I got 10. Well, I can see that my bin number here doesn't match the actual bin number. Okay. Now, again, this may take you longer to debug because you may not know that, but I can see that I didn't get a response for this. So at least there I can go in and say, okay, so what's going on with this one? Well, this was the URL for this one. Okay. And I did get a response for it. But for this one, now we're not doing live responses. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But this one, if I go in here and look, I didn't get a response. So that gave me a lot more information. So that, again, gives me some choices. So let's go look at this again. Now, I can say, if the live system doesn't exist, fall through to live system if virtualized operation doesn't exist. Okay. So let me talk about these for a second, because you do have other choices. This is a pass-through live system. Now, this is the opposite of the virtual service. What this is saying is if the live system, if the virtual server doesn't exist, and we're going to look at that in a few seconds, pass to the live system. This says the opposite. If the live system doesn't exist, fell over to my virtual service. Okay, so those two are kind of opposites of each other. Now, you have learning mode. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, because that'd be like, well, how do I fix the problem? Okay, and dynamic means it makes its own decision of what type of model and stuff that it uses for you. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what I want to do, I want to say fell over if my virtual service doesn't exist. Now remember, let me save it. Okay, I'm going to reset my transaction counts here. So let's reset that. Okay, we're still running. So if I go over here and look, and we're just going to click and search. Okay, so what I'm looking at is this is an Audi. Okay, it's about 4,000. It looks like valid data to me. Now, if you remember, the one I clicked on every time was this one, and it's an Acura, and it broke, and it's about 30,000 roughly. And look at that, Acura, 30,000, and it actually works. Okay, so what's happening here? If I go look at my transactions, let's refresh. I had a lot of transactions. I had double transaction. Each car takes 8 transactions, so double it, you get 16. Now, if you took that, what happened was the first car came through and says, oh, you're virtualized. I'm going to return the response I know. The second one hit the service and says, oh, I don't know you, so let's send you on to the back end. And that's how that kind of worked. Now, there's another option I can do too. What if I want to update my service? So the next step, let's talk about how do you fix the problem? The problem here is that we missed the cars, right? So the other problem we can look at is actually updating the service. There's a couple things we can do. First thing you can say, let's go to learn mode. So learn mode will apply the differences right away. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that one. So if I say okay, let's go ahead and save. Now we're running, we're in learning mode. So if I go back over here and if I say, let's look at this car. Okay, that's fair. Let's go ahead and look at, let's go to a different one. Let's do the BMW. Okay, and that's fair. So it should know about the one that we already had. The easiest way to view this is just go ahead and download the MAR file. Okay, and I'm going to open it up here and I'm going to drop it in our folder that we had over here. Where's my desktop? And we'll drop it in here. Paste. And to make it completely easy, oh, I closed the browser. That's okay, we'll reopen it. To make it completely easy, we're just going to create a new project. So we'll say File, New Project. And we'll say Fixed Cars, because I fixed our problem. And I want to base this on, let's go to desktop. Let's go to, see I did it earlier, so I probably should delete that one, but that's okay. That's why I put this one in here, so I know that's different. And let's go to next. And no, I didn't make any changes. So now, and no, I didn't make any changes. So now if I go in here and look at my one car, I now have 2 methods. Okay, notice my endpoints, 9014. So there you go. Now again, they're hard-coded, but at least gives you a starting point. Now the truth is, I would parameterize that. I think I talked about that in the other video. If not, again, I need to go back and see what I have in these videos. That's why I thought about doing one from beginning to end and go from there. But what that did was that took a live mode that kind of helped us record and add to our image. And there's other things you can do too. So if I do recording, you have this merge function. So I can do another recording and click merge, and it's going to add the differences to my image, right? And then the other thing you can do too is, where's it at? Give me 1 second. Oh, you can actually go to the VSI and right click and say combined other services into this images. And that will go off and find other services that you have created and merge them all into one. So there's just some ways you can update it, which is really cool. The most important thing to look at is the one that I was showing. I closed it, but your execution mode to me is probably the most important thing to look at. The very last thing I want to look at is probably your logging, because that's going to be your next step. Your logging is going to be under, I'll just pull it up so you know. So let's go here. It's going to be under your users administration. And then you have this Lisa. This is the old one. So I'm on 7.2. I probably should upgrade. I don't know what the latest is, but these are your log files and they're very important. So your VSE log is very important. Okay. Your VSE, so you want to look this up on support just to make sure you get it right. But this is going to be your, well, your VSE, right? So this is your VSE log. And then you want to go to your matches log. There should be a VSE matches right below it. Nothing there, pretty odd. In fact, a lot of these are pretty old. That's okay. And then you want to go to, I was trying to see if they created another one with a different name, right? Like a 01 or something, but I don't see it. And then another one you want to go to is logging properties. So I'm missing that one. Oh, I'm sorry, your logging properties. That would be wherever your app is, sorry. But that's something else you can look at. So anyway, so that's kind of it. I just want to make sure, like, I wanted to keep adding to those other videos I did. And again, this will probably be, I may go back and make it one big video, but then it might be too long. So this kind of broke it down. The biggest thing is, let's see, oh, okay, I can get back there. I was kind of worried about getting back there, so I didn't want to reset it, right? The biggest thing is to understand, so if I go look at the ones that we have, oh, not inside. Let's go look at monitor. The biggest thing is to understand these, and by all means, it's very important. Unless you have to, leave it in this mode, right? Unless you're debugging or something like that, leave it here because that's going to give you the best effect. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something about the ITR, how it kind of works. Again, your ITR is going to be on your model. It's right here, this pretty gear looking button. Okay, and these buttons are here are pretty common sense, and they have tooltips anyway, so if you don't know. So execution next step, do it automatically. I like to do it automatically, but you can do it one by one. And these are your steps, right? And then when you get done, make sure you stop it and delete it. Don't leave it running, right? And you can add properties to this watch file. Maybe I want to point to a different database. Maybe I want to, point to a different API while I'm testing in the backend or something different. So you can add the properties and it would be just for this. Properties get kind of confusing because they're everywhere, but once you understand them, they're not too complicated, I guess. Maybe I just did it forever. But the point is the properties here are for your ITR. Again, you have project properties, which is here. You have local properties. Let me get back over here, which is here. You have global properties, which is here. Okay. And it's pretty common sense where they fall in place. This is only project level, right? So, and this is kind of project level. So, yeah, you just kind of have to play with it. But global is for everything, right? So technically both of these are project level. And you can only have one active project config file. Okay. So these are local. So and these are global. Okay. Anyway, so I hope that